Welcome to the BYOB podcast. Today I have one of my clients that we've had a very busy background over our few years that we've worked together. Dr. Maja Green, doctor, I emphasise, is a very well qualified person from academia and has pivoted into the business world and just accelerated her journey massively. So I wanted to get her on the show before she's too famous to talk to me.
Oh, wow. Stop it, Andrew.
I want to introduce Maja. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thanks for coming on today. I know we're doing a lot of work together and you're actually super busy, but I wanted to capture kind of the moment because you've just pivoted from working for other people to working for yourself, which is what we love to talk about on the show. And so just to set the scene for people listening and watching, can you just tell us a bit about what you're doing right now and the business that we've just helped you set up? Then we'll delve back and find out how we got to this amazing place.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, thanks, Andrew. So the business that we have right now is a clinical research organization that is incorporated in the United States, but we are covering both Australia and the States. So what a clinical research organization does is we get contacted and contracted by international sponsors who want to do research in Australia. So doing research in Australia is very beneficial for international sponsors because of several reasons: the TGA, quick ethics applications, rapid recruitment, as well as the tax R&D rebates that we have here that can be up to 43%, which is very good for the companies from overseas, as well as they get really good, robust data. However, the US market also offers a much larger zip code and a much more diverse population that we can access, as well as the FDA approvals that are going through the US and commercialization of devices. So right now we're in the pain field. Mostly we deal with devices, so medical devices that are spinal cord stimulators, peripheral stimulators, or any sort of medical devices that have to do with chronic pain. And what separates us, so a clinical research organization in Australia or America, what they do is we basically help out with protocol development, we help with consent forms, we help with ethics submissions, TGA submissions, FDA submissions. We can write up your papers, analyze your results. So this is basically a full service organization. But early on, what separates us a little bit from the other CROs organizations is that we have identified a gap in this world, which is a patient recruitment. So a lot of the studies really struggle to recruit patients on time and recruit patients who are appropriate for the studies. So what I've done with a couple of partners 3 years ago is started developing a tool to rapidly identify and recruit appropriate patients for the studies that we are being contracted for. So we have a tool that can give us standardized and consistent outcome measures, which is also something that's really hard to come by in this space. So a lot of the pain medicine and pain research only relies on VAS as a primary outcome, but we have designed a tool that can standardize how patients actually respond to their pain levels versus subjective pain levels that we can actually see and measure. So it's actually it's a very interesting tool that we're going to shortly announce, as well as in America we have a tool that can identify sites based on the number of patients that they have eligible for specific trials. So a lot is coming up, and yeah, just wait and see. We have started the CRO about a month ago, and we are going full force, full steam ahead.
People can look up under Solaris Research Institute, and that's the main business. But those technologies are coming out as different brands.
Absolutely, it's coming out on Solaris Research Institute. The Australian technology is already with us, so we've already developed that already exists. So this allows for rapid recruitment of patients and database that
Mm.
also gets us the standardized and consistent patient outcomes. So that already we have up and running in Australia. We are just expanding it to America and making it much larger because of the larger population. So I mean, why not go big, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not the 10x sort of book that I just read. It's like 100x and 400x. It's really
Oh,
interesting because it's. I mean, being a medical background, you're now you're in business obviously, but you are now in technology, and it's like
yeah.
wow, that's a lot of fields there. How do you keep that all
Let's
in your
combine
brain?
it all. Why not?
Well, everything's technology these days. I mean, it's just sort of the way of life, and
Of
AI will
course. And
be
that's
in there
really where
too.
we want to move forward. A lot of the old studies, I mean, even current studies, we get this many papers, and my
Mm.
coordinators are, oh my God, why do we still have to have papers and why are we filling it out? And
Yeah,
sometimes papers get lost. And I'm really into standardizing all of this into a consistent database that we can just use and pull patients out. I mean, my database has 200,000 pain patients in it. So, I
wow.
mean, it is only growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So, look, this is really my goal is to move away from that old fashioned paper collection data
Yeah.
to a more centralized and up to date. Use the technologies that we have at our
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean,
advantage
and for
now.
those people who aren't used to medicine, essentially with any medical device, you have to test it and make sure it
Of course
works.
you do. Yeah,
And
of course.
and people, I presume hospitals and governments want to see these results. So you run the process to go from, I've manufactured this device to we've tested on patients and here's the veracity of the data.
Yeah,
And I mean, pain's one of the biggest fields in medicine now. It's unfortunately,
absolutely.
it's a sad
Yeah,
fact. Um,
yeah,
it affects so
especially
many
after
people.
COVID.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
It's increased after COVID.
Oh yeah, yeah. Chronic pains increased rapidly after COVID, as well as frailty in older people. So we've seen a massive increase in because during the COVID lockdown in Melbourne, we had the longest lockdown in the world, as you know,
Mm.
and people really, I know that
I was there.
sucks. So yeah, I know, me too. We were locked down for what 245 days. I can't even remember. But yeah, people who had mild pain that hasn't really developed into that chronic pain, and they couldn't walk or they couldn't really go outside out of either fear of
Yeah.
catching COVID or that whole 5 kilometer rule that we had. They developed chronic pain. So we have a lot of patients coming through both public hospitals and through our research institute and our private hospital with severe pain. So yeah, we do a lot of first in human studies, which is testing groundbreaking technologies that we have from that we get from other
Mm.
sponsors from overseas, both and Australia as well. So yeah, and
Yeah.
every single clinical trial needs to meet the criteria: a patient recruitment, adequate follow-ups, data retention, as well as deadlines that we need to follow. Because if you don't follow the deadlines, the companies can't commercialize their devices on time. Operational costs are increasing,
Mm.
and as you know,
And at the end of the day, I mean, this helps patients deal with their pain,
oh,
which is
absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
know,
We
I know.
have so many
Mm.
patients' testimonials. My favorite thing, as I say to all of my anybody I talk to, is seeing a patient who has chronic pain so bad that they can barely walk into our clinic, and they are in tears because they have tried everything.
Mm.
They are on so many opioids, really heavy drugs, which makes you really drowsy. You get very addicted to them, as you know, and eventually really doesn't help. So they come into our clinic, their eyes are glazed over, they're just begging for help. And after one of the surgeries that they have at our clinic, in the morning I tend to go to the wards and see how they are. And when they open their eyes after being programmed, it's a completely different person that you're seeing.
Wow.
And I cannot tell you how much joy that gives me.
Mm.
I That really fills my cup. That is really the sole reason why I am pushing for advancements in treatment of chronic pain. Seeing how my patients' lives have changed over, and I've had patients over 14 years that have been in clinical
Wow.
trials, and their lives are completely changed from barely walking to the mailbox to climbing a mountain in Japan. So it's just
That is amazing.
absolutely incredible. Yeah, and that just being able to help somebody who really suffers that badly and get them off those medications and get them the appropriate help that they really need. Also no cost either. It's just absolutely, it really gives me so much joy. And this is
Yeah.
really the foundation of why I do what I do.
I was wondering why you work so hard, because I don't think I've ever met someone working as hard as you. And because we've known each other for a while now, and I wanted to go back a little bit and sort of talk about your history, because I mean you're a doctor with a PhD rather than a GP, but you've also got like an MBA and you've done lots of different things. So I'm just curious where it all started. And so I asked this first question of everybody. So I didn't warn you on this, but what was your first paying job? Like, were
My
you,
first paying job.
yeah, when you were a kid, was there a paper round or a lemonade stand, or did
Oh,
you?
I did that too. I did the paper runs, but no. So my family history, we were war refugees from Croatia. So we came to Sweden, my mom, me, and my brother. And my first paying job was at 11 years old, being at a market in Sweden, selling strawberries
Ah,
and,
that's so cute.
and blueberries as a little 11-year-old, which sort of made me very confident in speaking to people, because
Yeah.
you sort of have to put yourself out there even as a little kid. So I did that as a summer job for, a couple of years, which
Mm,
was very interesting. So yeah, my first pay job, very cold, very, but also very interesting. You meet a whole bunch of different characters, which I think has also helped me in the way that I deal with people
mm,
right now, because everybody's different and you need to meet people with in different ways
yeah.
so that it suits them in the way that you speak with people. So yeah, a little girl selling strawberries at a
Yeah.
market in Sweden.
Was that for your parents or just for a friend or something like that, a friend of the family?
Well, no, it first started for a company, and then it started, and then we transitioned to, we are running the company, and then we had some,
You're running the
as
company.
immigrant. Not me. Oh my God, not
Ah,
at 13. No, no,
I
no,
was
no,
going to
no.
go. It wouldn't surprise me
My
though, but anyway.
family
Ah,
did.
your
And
family.
then,
Okay.
yeah, and then we, as any other immigrant, we had one of those, shops where you sell newspapers and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, worked there as
Oh,
well.
you did. Ah,
Yeah,
legitimately paper round.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Experience there too, every Saturday and Sunday, helping
Mm,
the family out, as you do. So, yeah, but I've always been very, very interested in medicine, not necessarily medicine, but more helping people.
mm,
So that's always been a driver. And I remember even from being at the age of your grade 4 back in Croatia, when they said, "Oh, can you grow a plant and how does that work?" And it was just so interesting to me that you can actually make something out of a little seed, and you can make it grow and you can nurture it. And
mm.
that whole thing was really exciting for me. So that really got me into science and medicine. And I've always known that this was my path, not necessarily business and technology, that came later, but the science and health was definitely
Because
always a part of my life.
you studied biology, was that right? Is that what you and was that in Sweden or was that in Croatia before you left?
That was in Sweden.
Sweden.
So I studied biomedicine at the University of Skövde in Sweden. So this is one of the, so it works slightly different in Sweden. So you get into biomedicine and you basically do a year where you can either do medicine or science. You can split to one or the other
Mm,
after the first year. So in the first year, I was put on a ward. I did pathology, so blood draws, and I was put on a ward within leukemia, pediatric leukemias. And I remember looking at the families; they were devastated. The kids
mm,
who had leukemia were just trying to cheer up their parents rather than the other way around.
mm,
And I just thought, what, this is too hard for me
mm,
to actually work in a field where I am looking at this face to face. What I want to do is be in the background and try and figure out a way to block any of the pathways that these poor children
mm,
have to live with and deal with. So that was really my decision. That was a decision point for
mm,
me, that medicine is not necessarily something that I want to do. I want to be behind the scenes and I want to help in a way that I can, by designing something new, by helping in a novel way, by coming up with new ways to treat patients rather than just give the drugs that are available. So that really led me into that science field.
yeah. Wow. And then what brought you to Australia? Why? I mean, Sweden's a pretty cool place. You could have stayed there forever.
Yeah, so no,
I,
Sweden is a great place. So I finished my honors at Sahlgrenska Hospital in Sweden, and I also did my masters there at one of the hospitals in Sweden through Skövde. And the dean of the university came up to me and said, "Look, there are two spots in Australia for a fully sponsored PhD in cancer. I want you to apply." I said, "What do you mean in Australia?" He said, "Yeah, can you apply? I really want you to apply now. I'll send you a support letter. You are really smart. You're top of the class. I really think this is something that you should do." And I was like, "When do I start?" And he goes, "3 months from now." So imagine packing up your life and leaving to a country that you've never been to in 3 months.
did
So
you
I
think it
said, "You
was?
know what? I'll apply." Yeah.
Did
For
you think it was
me,
Austria, or and you thought you were just skipping over a few countries in Europe, or?
honestly, I like when you said Australia, I thought Crocodile Dundee.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
People are walking with knives and big hats, and there's just surfs. And I've never been to Australia, nor had I looked it up.
Wow.
So I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to miss this opportunity. I
Yeah,
will
why not?
apply, see what happens, see if I get in, or, because there's a lot of people applying, obviously, for these coveted positions. Had interviews and got in. And so they said, "Well, we need you here within 2 months." So I literally had to pack up everything, say goodbye to my family, get on a flight, and go to Melbourne. It was just the most bizarre thing ever.
Yeah.
And I absolutely have not regretted it. So I worked at La Trobe University and Royal Children's Hospital with pediatric high-grade gliomas, so brain tumors, looking at apoptotic pathways and mutagenic pathways. So that's sort of where I started my PhD journey there.
Wow.
It's
And so you did your
interesting.
PhD, which is like, from people I know who've done PhDs, it's like, don't ask me about it because it's so hard. So you did finish, and then you went on did research. Is that kind of where the path led you?
Yeah,
Or?
so I finished my PhD 3.5 years, and then I worked as a postdoc at the same laboratory to
Mm,
train other students coming through to sort of continue on with my project
mm,
because it was going quite well. I was then offered a fellowship at Melbourne University, Mackenzie Fellowship, to work with chronic pain. There is a bit of chronic pain in my family, so that's always been an interest of mine, in particular, the pathways between chronic pain and cognition. So I did apply for so I got into Melbourne University and I worked there for 4 years looking at learning and memory and plasticity. Did a lot of animal studies and learned a lot there, and then tested a lot of drugs as well, and then realized that I think I really want to know how this translates into clinic, because
mm.
I've gone from the lab into culturing tumors in dishes to going into live and going into animals. And then I thought, you know what, how does this look like in humans? Because now I know the pathways. I've dissected how this looks like in an animal. How I want to see a human, and I want to see how this works, and how all of these drugs that we're testing, what do they do, and do they actually work,
Mm,
and how this translates into real world, into clinic. So that was really my sort of segue to try and get into clinic. And as a PhD, it's really difficult to get into clinical trials because everyone will
yeah.
look at you and go, "Well, you have no medical experience, so we're not going to have you in research." But I was very persistent.
Really? I'm so surprised.
I was very persistent. So I went to Monash Health Intensive Care Unit, and I said, "Look, I want
How did you
the
apply?
fellow
Did
job."
you just look them up and went, oh, this is the one I
I
want,
looked
just
them
called it?
up. I gave them a call and I said, "Look, I'm going to come in for the interview." And it was the worst interview I've ever done in my life. It was such a failure. It was absolutely shocking. I remember leaving the interview going, "Oh my God, I hope I
Uh,
never get to do this again." It was absolutely shocking. But literally 2 hours later, I was called and said, "You know what? You got the job." I'm like,
wow.
seriously? I was so surprised. I
Yeah.
was absolutely so surprised. And they said, "Look, you're honest, you're passionate, you're enthusiastic. Everything else can be learned, but seeing you and the
Yeah, interesting.
way that you really want this and how you want to do it, and the ideas that you have around research and the background that you have in these pathways really gives us with a different sort of view of things, which is really not something that I thought of. I just wanted to fit into that mold, but they saw it as, well, you're bringing something new into this.
Mm.
So let's come in, let's design clinical trials together, let's run them together. So that's how I started designing clinical trials based on my
Mm.
molecular knowledge, as well as learning that clinical knowledge and applying it into the clinic and patients that we were treating, which were cardiothoracics and ICU anesthetic patients.
Ah, fascinating. So how long were you there for? Were you there as a few years?
I was there for about 3 or 4 years.
Mm.
And then after that, so I did a couple of my own trials. We worked together with Swinburne University as well, did some ketamine driving studies. And then I ran a translational cancer research lab in the similar hospital. So they've divided it into Monash University and Monash Health, but there was a bridge that could sort of have the clinical trials, phase 0, 1, 2, 3 clinical trials, as well as the lab. So for me, that translation between the lab precision medicine into oncology was really interesting, and I wanted to work within that space because I had the knowledge with the lab pathways, as well as that clinical, what sort of things should we target and how do we target it, look at a genome of somebody and what can we do with this. So
Mm.
that to me was really exciting and really rewarding. So we're working on a lot of phase 0, 1 clinical trials in oncology, mostly colorectal cancers. We collaborated obviously across Melbourne, and no, it was really a fantastic experience, and I got to work in the lab as well. So dusted off my old lab coat and went
Bit of a
right back
Bunsen
in
burner.
there. Yeah, no. So it was, yeah, definitely a journey. So yeah, after that, I sort of pain kept drawing me back to that, because seeing cancer patients also have obviously are in severe amount of
Mm.
pain. They are on morphine, especially palliative care patients. That's
Mm.
really the last sort of stage of treatment. They're delirious. They're, it's really not, it's really sad watching somebody deteriorate like that. And so, again, chronic pain was something that really always drew me to wanting to help people who suffer
Mm.
from it. So that really led me to Metro Pain Research, which was right across the road from Monash House Hospital.
Mm.
I mean, from Monash Health.
Yeah.
And yeah, I met all of the doctors there. Bruce Mitchell, I started working for
Mm.
Professor Bruce Mitchell, a very smart man who's recently retired, is an absolutely fantastic mentor. Met Dr. Dan Bates, also, again, a very amazing, smart guy, really good mentor for me as well. So I used to work for him for about 2 years, I would say, running clinical trials.
Mm.
And then I took over the business.
All right, well, we'll just finish there. So, no, we need to
I
delve
just
into
finished
that.
there.
So that's where I met you at Dr. Dan and so forth at that hospital.
Yeah.
We were doing some work there. So tell me a bit about this transition, because we were working together. I still, I was working with the hospital and also with your group and Dan on the side and a few other things. And so I'm in that industry. And then all of a sudden, you're in this US company doing this massive thing. And I'm like, wow, where did that come from? Like, how did this come about? You must have gone to a conference and met somebody and it just sort of took off from there. Or I don't know. How did all this come about? Was this on your plan? Were you always planning on doing something like this? Or?
Actually, no, it wasn't in my plan. So what happened was, so Dan Bates decided that he has a lot of things that he's doing. As you know, he
Mm.
has his own patients, his own consulting clinic, and surgery room. And it was just too much for him to also run the research. So then
Mm.
I said, look, how about I take over the research and I run the research, because it's really important. I feel that we do have those groundbreaking new devices and pharmaceutical helps that we can help our patients with. So I said, if I can then take over research from you, more than happy to. Just let me run it. So
Which
I
makes
took over
sense. I mean,
research.
It's kind of
It
your
makes
thing, right?
sense, yeah, because yeah, and so he said, no, absolutely, I haven't really, I have full faith in you
Mm,
and little time for research, and we still work together. He's always his investigator on all of our studies. So
yeah.
so he signed over research to me. Dr. Paul Barrels also has part of the research as well.
Mm,
And I took over in November, and we ran my database that I was telling you about, the tool for fast recruitment and
mm,
execution of trials on a couple of trials that we had. And then I was contacted by Dr. Krishnan Chakravarti from the US. So I met him at a conference a long time ago, but he's also good friends with Dan and Paul. And
okay. Yeah.
yes, they were
The network
friends.
effect. Always.
The network effect, I
Yeah.
know.
Right.
So he called and he said, look, I'm sort of seeing what you guys are doing at Metro Pain. I want to set up a collaboration. And I said, so what kind of collaboration? And I think it was initially to acquire MPRI, but then it turned out I wouldn't obviously, but it
Mm,
just turned out that we had the same interests, we had the same goals, and I'm always thinking high. I'm thinking,
mm,
how can we expand this? How can we use what we have? How can we leverage what we have here with our tools and our staff and our patients and all of the knowledge that we have here, because we have the top doctors in the world in Melbourne. We're very, very fortunate. How can we use this to expand across US? And so they also had a very similar database that I do. So combining the two and expanding to US was just really a natural progression from where I was to
mm,
start with. So yeah, it's actually and it happened very quickly. Like you said, I took over MPRI in November, and now we've been Solaris Research Institute for the last, I think, 3 months, and it's full steam ahead. We're
mm.
actually doing decently well. So yeah,
It's amazing. I mean, what you said then was that, we've got some of the best pain researchers in the world, some of the best
we do.
practitioners, and we're so fortunate. And I think Australians don't tend to go for it as much. I think we go, well, great, I'm really good, so I'll practice in Melbourne and have a great clinic. But you're taking on the world. You're going to America and showing them how we do it, which is fabulous. And I wonder whether those background, being in lots of different countries, you've had lots of different experiences, so you're a bit more worldly, perhaps, which helps with this.
Yes.
I mean, you're very
Yes.
entrepreneurial. I mean, you did an MBA, squeeze that
Yes.
in somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. So I worked, I forgot to mention, I worked for a company called Bolton Clark, and they work with elderly patients. So that was during COVID, and it was really difficult because they had aged care facilities and we were advising them how to look after our patients during COVID. And during that time I thought, you know what, I'm actually quite interested in the business side of things as well. So I started my MBA at RMIT University part-time, just to sort of see, can I do it? Can I not do it? Do I have time for it? And I really absolutely loved it, especially
Mm,
the leadership courses were my absolute faves. So I enjoyed every single part of it, and applying what I've learned in my MBA now to my current work, as well as when I took over MPRI. It's really helped me significantly in moving forward, but also having mentors and people that you can
mm,
trust, that you can go
mm,
to, and you feel like you can, just sort of spill your guts out, and they can really give you good advice and mentor you in different aspects of your life. I think is really important to surround yourself with supportive people, because there's always going to be a lot of people who want to bring you down, especially as a female in this world
yeah.
growing as we are. It's not easy. It's
Mm,
absolutely not easy. But, I'm very fortunate. I work with Krishnan, who has been absolutely a rock. He's
mm,
been so supportive, and same with Paul and everybody else that I'm working with in Solaris. So they make me feel extremely comfortable and confident in moving forward and doing really what I want to do. So it's really so incredible to work with such a supportive team. And I think the team is really what makes a company run, as well as my team who work for me at MPRI. They are amazing, and there's not, I couldn't do this without them. So I think the most important thing is having the mentors that you really trust that can give you good advice, whether it's good or bad. You got to take it. You have
Yeah.
to listen to it. Critique. Don't take it personally. It's business, so you need to learn. Have to have thick skin. You have to learn to really differentiate what is personal and what is
Mm.
business. And surround yourself with people that you can trust. So that would probably be my advice to anybody who would try and
Great advice.
embark on a journey such as this. Yeah, because
Mm.
you never know who you're gonna, meet or end up with. But yeah, I'm extremely fortunate. I see myself as, very, very lucky that it's not many people that get these opportunities that I've gotten in life.
Well,
So
you've kind of worked for it. Like it's the
well, yeah, no, that's it. Yeah,
yeah.
but a lot of people work for it, and sometimes, the outcome
Sometimes it
isn't
happens, sometimes it doesn't. But
what it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
but you've
so
had ups and downs as well. I mean, it's businesses, like that, and and we've talked about that in the past. And one thing I thought about your journey is that when the opportunity came, to take over, it seemed like a natural thing to me that you would do that, but you grabbed it with both hands and never were in doubt. And
no,
that's interesting because some people wrestle and, oh, should I do it and should I not? And there's so many things that can go wrong, and it's financial risk, it's reputation risk, it's there's lots of things. But I guess um, your passion and underlying desire to help people overcomes that. And this is why I like to tap into people's why. Why do they do what they do? Because if you have a
yes,
strong enough why, the how will show itself. And if you're only worried about
absolutely,
the how, then there's always a reason not to do something. And so,
absolutely,
yeah, particularly going to the US, I think is just such a great move. And you found the right people because of your energy. You don't attract good people if you're, if you're a negative person or you don't show up and put the effort in. So, it's not like they've just come to you. You've created it. So, take some kudos,
thank you.
responsibility, um, and have some a little bit of praise for you just on this podcast. So let me ask you about the next steps, because obviously you just started this business and it's taking off, and it looks like it has massive potential. What could it be? Do you have a vision of what other
We
potential where it could
absolutely
go?
have a vision. So yeah, we absolutely have a vision. We are expanding into different fields as well. So we're going into oncology and psychedelic cannabis fields that we've had connections with. We're expanding our operations in US and Australia, and we are also hitting other markets as well, other countries. So we're going to be a global CRO, and it's really separating us from most other CROs because of the tools that we had at hand
Mm,
and because of the people that we have, the networks that we are connected with.
mm.
So, look, I am so excited for the next steps. It is a lot of work and it is a lot of travel, let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
But I am beyond excited. So my next step is to get all of the US sites up and running,
Mm,
get the projects going in the US, and get that, get that first couple of trials finished and done in US, as well as finalizing all the trials in Australia and keep moving forward to other countries. So yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
great.
I'm all in. I am full
You're all
steam
in.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
All
that. But
in.
you're all in to make it work, right? You can't sort of just dip your toe in. It's like do it or
No.
don't. So I love
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Like there's no, pardon my language, half-assing it. You just have to go in. It's meetings at 3:30. You have to have meetings at 3:30,
Yeah, you're
depending
saying
on
AM, of course.
country where it is. If you have to travel tomorrow somewhere, you have to travel tomorrow somewhere. There is really no option. So as a startup, as you would also know,
Mm.
there's no, you just have to do it.
It's yeah. It's
And
not
that's,
like it's 5 o'clock. Just turn off your laptop and go and have the rest of your day. It's like it's even.
yeah,
I mean,
no.
you've got kids and so forth, and so do I. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
you just have to manage it around it and run fast. And your brain's always
Absolutely.
ticking, even if your body's not at
Oh,
work. So
yeah. And I was just telling Krishna and somebody else, I
he's a
can't
massive
remember who else.
entrepreneur. He's just such a positive,
Yeah,
powerful person. Yeah.
absolutely. And I was like, I don't think I could ever work for anybody else. I think this is really and he said, what? No. really? So no,
Well,
there is no way I could ever. I feel like this is really, I'm sort of the whole, my whole path in life has really led me to this place, and I'm
mm,
so grateful to be in this place. And I know that this is just the start, and I know that we are growing, and I could not be more excited to take those next steps with this company, because it is just absolutely incredible how it's
mm,
being set up, and I couldn't be more proud of everybody that we're working with.
mm.
So yeah,
Starting business is like, getting the genie out of the bottle. It's hard to get it back in, right? You sort of, now you're the boss of a global growing, health tech business. It's like, you know, what a rush and what fulfillment you can get from that. And, it's,
massive.
you know, regardless of the path, how bumpy it gets, or how, with work, and, obviously it's a lot of pressure and those sorts of things. But with your enthusiasm and positive attitude, you can pretty much overcome anything, right? So, yeah.
Let's hope so. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll get you in on the next installment in a couple of years. So if we can. So just the last question I have is, we always ask this at the end, and if you're imagining someone in your place, there's a let's say it's a female researcher out there, doing the hard yards in a lab, and they've got some dreams, they've got some entrepreneurial, characteristics. What kind of advice would you give them? And you've already given some wonderful advice already, but what would be the one piece you think would help them in their next step in the journey?
Network, get out there, put yourself out there. Don't close yourself up in the lab. Reach out to people. There's always going to be someone to help. So, for example, my research manager from the lab reached out to my former supervisor at Melbourne University. She said, "I really want to do clinical research. Do you know anyone?" She connected her with me, and I said, "Come on board.
Oh,
I want
that's
to teach you."
fabulous. That's great. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I tell clients that all the time, is that, even though there's business and technology and AI, and we get so caught up in the digital world, it's still all
Mm.
about people. People make
It's all about
decisions.
people.
Yeah. And
And I
being
couldn't,
genuine,
she,
Mm,
yeah, she has picked up on things so quickly. She's my right hand. I could not be doing any of this without her. So she's literally fresh from the lab, from the university, recommended to me by my former supervisor.
mm,
No clinical trial experience, but that enthusiasm and that drive.
attitude.
And no matter how many times she said, "Oh no, you can't do it. You can't get into the clinic." Once, you can have 99 no's, but that one yes is what gets you in. So you really need to learn to fall and get up. I think that's really important, having that resilience, because you will fall many, many times in life.
Mm,
I have many, many times. You don't get to a stage of your life where you're successful if you haven't had falls and mistakes, but
mm,
it's how you handle it and how you get yourself up is what's really important. And I'm all for supporting people who are enthusiastic and who really want to get into clinical research and who really want to work hard for it as well. So yeah, just network, contact people, get in touch, send emails, send resumes, just keep going. I've had people contact me as well. I've forwarded off resumes to other
mm.
people. So just, don't shy away. Scientists tend to shy away in their
Yeah.
lab coats, and
Introvert normally, because that's what they like.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a very competitive environment in science for NHMRC grants. It's very, you get a 6-month position and it's not stable. You never get a permanent position. So that's also really difficult for people in
Mm,
academia. So yeah, I mean, you just have to put yourself out there. You need that confidence. I think confidence is really the key, and you need to drive it. You need to really be out there. So I guess
love it.
that would be, yeah.
I love it. It's
one.
great. It's great advice. I mean, I say to my clients similar things in business, and it's interesting. It just translates to every aspect of life, because people are the key, and don't burn any
Yeah.
bridges. Keep good
Never burn your
relationships.
bridges.
Mm,
Absolutely. Never
yeah,
ever burn your bridges. Keep good relationships, and that's it.
yeah. Right. Maya, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you all the success with your fabulous business. It's been, great advice and really inspiring conversation. So I appreciate you having it on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Andrew.